where we are right now at an Elliott wave macro view is we are probably headed for about a 50% retracement, which would put us around 10,300, 10,400 on the Dow. We just last week passed through the first major stopping threshold where such rallies typically stop, which is 38.2% retracement. And we passed the 38.2% retracement both in price and time, so that brings the 50% retracement. Before I'd be a believer in a grand rally, I'd want to be past Cliff's window that where things get really bad in October. Well, actually, we've got September 22nd to 25th is really ugly, and then we have this major shift of emotions that comes along about October 25th. And then we get into a huge ramp-up over like a one-week period that'll be like the most intense thing many people will ever have experienced in watching headlines. And then however that resolves itself. But longer term, I wouldn't be surprised by, say June of next year to see the Dow down as low as 4,400.
Wow.
4,400.
Oh, sure.
Will there be any shopping malls left open?
Not really. See, that's where things that's the problem. Did you see Nancy Pelosi getting really worried and getting choked up at the mention of expressing fear last week about the potential for violence in America?
I saw those crocodile tears, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're afraid of. Because, you see, at some point, as long as you've got some hope of pushing things, pushing money into the economy, you may end up with inflation like during the Weimar Republic. But inflation is much preferable to runaway deflation. And so what the Fed's trying to do, honestly, I'm not sure what I'd do different. Well, I know what I'd do differently. I would radically change the face of American politics in one fell swoop by making it illegal to send any money for a political purpose between states except for the office of president, and then I'd make
Hold it right there, George, because we are kindred spirits on that point. Stay tuned, everybody. After the top of the hour, we'll be back with George here and Annie DeRiso, and you're not going to want to miss what we're going to talk about. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Common Sense Show. Hi, everybody. This is your host, Dave Hodges. Flying co-pilot with me tonight is our under-the-radar news correspondent, Annie DeRiso, and our very special guest is George Ure. And, George, let's go back to that comment that ran right up into the break when you were talking about what you wanted to do with regard to shifting money for political purposes. Go ahead.
Well, it's very simple. Economics drives American politics. Actually, economics bought American politics. There has been a huge corporate influence on America that, in my opinion, has not been healthy either for humans or for responsible social policy. This has come about because systematically the courts have handed corporations things like immunity from lawsuits, just taking swine flu vaccine as an example. They're handing out get-out-of-jail-free cards, allowing corporations to behave with government complicity in an irresponsible manner. This is all made possible by special interest groups, and special interest groups, in my opinion, do not belong in America. It ain't in the Constitution. I don't think that we should have groups in Washington that are buying the people that we send there to do a job for us. I hate to be anti-lobbyist about this, but there are two people who get elected, the president and the vice president. Other than that, there should not be a dime of political money coming from any place outside of a state.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I'll even go a step further, and I'm a libertarian, so I cringe when I even say this. I cringe, and you probably will too. But I do think people need a way to evaluate candidates. And I would be willing to take some of our tax money, and for our qualified candidates that come through the state party systems, like the Libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, choke, I'd like to see that money distributed equally. Keep it limited. You can get no more money beyond what is given to you. You can buy no more TV time. So the candidates get heard equally in all possible venues, and make it a felony for a corporation or a lobbyist to try to influence with money.
Yes, and I'm not cringing at that. That makes sense. My real radical solution is to mandate that Congress pack up, go home, go back to their districts, and conduct all of their business electronically like the rest of us, and go to Washington for an occasional FaceTime meeting, but for the most part, do it like the rest of us do it. Use Skype. Okay, put in a secure thing so you can talk about national secrets, but there's no reason why our U.S. representatives should not conduct at least 50% of their time from their home district and be accessible in the district. Washington, D.C. is a nice place to visit, but, we got to have more FaceTime with these guys because they have become seriously out of touch. I don't know a single person during the banking crisis who got a response that was meaningful from the people that were giving away the $1 trillion in the midst of the banking crisis.
I think you're being kind. I heard it was more like $2+ trillion.
Well, yeah. I mean, arguably, a few banks, those that can front-run using high-frequency trading technology, which was installed for their use by the government, are able to pay some of their TARP money back early, right?
In a perfect world.
Well, no, I mean they are. They make the money on the front running, and then they're able to turn around and pay off TARP. It's beautiful. I mean, the level of sophistication and rather than saying at some point the whole system has to be looked at as a corruption of.
Well, that's all it is. It is corrupt.
It's corrupt.
And if we're going to pay our bills, I've got to step aside here, George, and we're going to be right back after a word from our sponsors. More with George Ure in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody, and I've been sitting here in stunned silence, contemplating what our special guest, George Ure, said before the last break, in which we discussed cutting off all corporate money going in for political, maybe legal political bribery, but just stopping it. And George, Annie will tell you I've been talking about this for years, and I have to say that on the airwaves, you are the only person that I've ever heard share that view.
Well, it's really simple because it's money that runs everything. And I'm not the only guy who says it. My tax attorney is a guy up in Ohio and sent me a note. There was, and I'll post it on urbansurvival.com tomorrow, the link to this. Professor Simon Johnson of MIT, he says, offers absolutely the best explanation both of what happened recently to the economy and what's about to happen. And according to my guy, he's an attorney, right? And he does taxes for a living and so forth. And he said, he's saying the same thing that George is saying and that my friendly attorney says. And why is it that somebody has to become a Sloan School of Management senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics before he can tell the truth? I didn't hear him saying this when he was chief economist at the International Monetary Fund from 2007 to 2008. And that's the problem. People get into these positions, and there are so many, wouldn't say crap if you had a mouth full of it kind of restraints. We've got to start talking straight in this country, or we're going to lose it.
Well, I don't know how many people are listening tonight. I may know after the show. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping, George, that these people are sitting here. This is a novel idea because when I have told people this, I get a double take typically. That's the normal reaction. And then people look at me like, are you nuts?
Well, of course. What's the point? I mean, who isn't?
But it's so simple. I mean, to me, it's a very simple process. Number one, save Ron Paul, we need to unelect every single person in Congress. Don't tell me your guy is okay. He's not okay.
He's not okay.
Everybody needs to go. And the new guys that go in have to have a mandate or they'll be gone in 2 years. And that mandate is get the corporations out of our political monetary system of campaigning.
There.
Now, let me ask you the third part I'm wondering about. Can we, because I think we've been the victims of extortion and criminal racketeering both nationally and internationally, can't we have a legal justification just to repudiate this debt, wipe it clean, and start over?
Probably not. However, if we went back to a sound currency with convertibility either to gold, silver, or oil, I don't care which one it is, whether maybe it's a friend of mine who just left a big Wall Street outfit, where he was one of the guys that was at the center of the creation of collateralized mortgage debt. By the way, he suggested that really the right thing to do would be to make it more of a calorie based, so that let's say $1 buys you 1,800 calories or some energy to calorie equivalency. But at least set up something that's a real benchmark that you can't go in and print. And then why not bring back interest rate caps? I mean, for years and years and years and years and years, banks were able to make money with interest rates at 12% and under. There's no reason when the Fed has discount rates at, I looked at a daily trading report the other day, and it was like 0.38%. on one of the daily New York Fed reports. Now, that's ridiculous. If you can't make money with a spread of 11.62% spread on overnight funds, you're never going to be able to make money. You see what happens when interest rates go up? The accessibility to the public doesn't necessarily improve. What ends up happening is that there is so much interest that you can then add another layer of financial bureaucracy. And so if the interest rate spread was, let's say, 6% max,